Hello, dear English learners. Sorry that I couldn't run the help club for everyone, and those who didn't get the invitation, I don't want you to feel neglected, so I decided to post this a video which I hope will help you to perform better in IELTS, especially in the part 1. So today we're going to talk about the first part of the speaking, and we're going to run through some useful tips. And next time I will also post another video related to the second part. So if you look at the part 1, we're going to look at some tips. And the first tip, which is quite important, you have to create a good impression. And sometimes students ask me if they smile, are friendly, and give the examiner good eye contact, will they get a higher mark? Well, the answer is yes and no. Of course, there is nothing in the marking criteria which says that being nice or looking the examiner in the eye will improve your grade. However, being confident helps you become more productive. It's about your speaking, and it will have an effect on your answers. So if you look, for example, at the floor and give the impression that you would rather be anywhere in the world apart from in the room with the examiner, you will normally give very short answers, and this will lower your score. But if you are open and friendly with the examiner, you are more likely to give natural sounding answers. Of course, don't overdo eye contact. It might feel strange if you stare at someone for 15 minutes. Just pretend that you're having normal conversation and you will be fine, right? So again, let me repeat. It doesn't affect on your score, but it will give you more confidence and it will make your answers better. Okay, this was the first thing. Let's continue. Another thing we should do is to pretend you're interested in the questions. Let's admit it that most IELTS questions are really boring. And if you listen to someone answer a boring question, you will notice that their voice is monotone, it doesn't go up or down in pitch at all, and it sounds very flat. So if you speak like this, you will get a lower mark for pronunciation, because one of the crucial factors you will be tested on is intonation. So when native English speakers talk, their voice naturally falls and rises depending on how they feel about what they are saying. So imagine, for example, you're late for class and you walk into the room and the teacher says to you in fallen tone, "Sit down, please," for example. And if you look at the intonation, this intonation tells you that the teacher is not very happy with your, let's say, lack of punctuality. But if they say it with a rising tone at the start, they would probably be telling you they don't mind that you're late and are happy to see you. They could say, "Oh, hello, sit down, please." And it shows your mood and your attitude. So similarly, if you pretend that you're interested in what the examiner is saying, your intonation should become more, let's say it, varied. So listening to native speakers, how they talk and copying their intonation will give you a good idea of what natural intonation sounds like. So when you record your answers, pay also attention on your intonation. It's also an important point. Okay, let's continue. Next tip, we have to extend our answers. So if you look at this example, you can answer shortly, "I like sport," or you can give more extended answer. They shouldn't be too short. Remember, you want to show the examiner that you can actually use English. So I like sport or something less is not really long enough. It shouldn't be too long, of course. Let's say it should be approximately 3 or 4 sentences. All right. So as a general rule, if you only give a single sentence answer with a single clause, like for example, I like sport, then your answer is too short. All right. So please remember about that. This is about the first part. Okay. Next tip: do practice. Yeah? So let me clarify this tip. It is a very bad idea to prepare memorized answers before your speaking test. Um, well, the first part is quite predictable. You should practice the familiar topics mentioned. That will be about your family, yeah, and about your hobbies, probably about your neighbors, something like that. So my tip would be try recording yourself using your, for example, mobile phone, then listen back and think carefully about your vocabulary first. Can you improve your vocabulary? All right. Did you choose words correctly? Then next, look at the grammar. Did you make any grammar mistakes that could be fixed? Probably. Next, look at the fluency. Did you speak fluently and did you speak at a natural speed? Probably. Fourth would be your intonation, as we previously talked about it. Then remember to check that your answers are extended enough. And finally, you should check that you speak clearly. Yeah? So that is about your pronunciation. And did you answer the question in general, right? Okay, let's continue. Next, tips, we're going to talk about things we shouldn't do. So the first thing, don't give yes or no answers. So if you look at this example, the examiner asks if you like music, and the answer is no. That, of course, would be that answer. So if you look at the example below, that would be a possible answer, even if you don't like music. Anyway, you can develop your ideas. Well, this might be, of course, obvious, but most of the most of the questions, they, let's say, they lead us to a yes or no answer. But you must remember that you are in a test and you have to show the examiner how good your English is. If you answer yes or no, the examiner cannot examine your ability. He cannot judge your ability, and you will get a low mark no matter how good your English is. Some people give yes or no answers because they're maybe too nervous and they want the test to be over as soon as possible. But just remember, the examiner is not there to trick you, and most of them are nice people who want you to do your best. So don't be afraid to tell them the truth, even if you don't like, for example, music. Yeah, just develop your idea, and maybe you can say what other things you like. All right? Okay, next tip, which we shouldn't do, don't go off topic. So I would like you to look at the example. The question was, where are you from? And the candidate, first he answered, but then he started talking about his childhood and what did he used to do, and that means that he started to speak off topic. And I remember that I recently asked a girl what she did in her free time, and she told me everything there was to know about badminton. But I didn't ask her about the rules, history, or great players, and this has, of course, affected your score. Just remember, you need to answer that using 3 or 4 sentences. All right? If you're speaking more, that means you're probably giving irrelevant details, right? remember that in the further part, in the part 2 and 3, you will have a chance to talk a lot, alright? But first part, just 2 or 3 sentences would be enough. Okay, let's continue. Okay, next, don't give no answer. Let me clarify. Unfortunately, in IELTS, you cannot choose the question. And if you don't know the answer to a question, or you simply don't like the question, you don't have a choice. You must answer it. Remember that part 1 is about you. There will be no questions which you don't understand because they will be all about you. But if you don't understand a word in a question, it is acceptable to ask the examiner to explain what that one word means. And it's also acceptable to ask the examiner to repeat the question, all right? But anyway, you have to answer the question. They're going to be easy, personal, and it is not an examination of your knowledge, it is a test of your English. So it is perfectly acceptable to make something up if you are really stuck, all right? So look at this example. There was a question about historical buildings, and you might not know anything about historical buildings. But please don't answer, I don't know anything. If you look at this example, that was one possible way you can answer this question. All right, and you demonstrated good language skills. Okay, next thing we shouldn't do, don't speak very quietly. So this is one of the most annoying things for the examiner, because no matter how good your English is, if we cannot hear you, we can't give you a high score. This has a lot to do with the confidence and probably shyness. So make sure that you are not talking to the floor and speak a little louder than normally. The examiner will also be recording the test, so it has to be loud enough for the recording device to pick up your voice. So try recording yourself and play it back. If you cannot hear yourself clearly, then you need to increase the volume of your voice a little more. Right? Okay, let's go to our, I think, final tip, which says don't be perfectionist. Remember that the examiner, he knows that you are speaking in a non-native language, right? And he doesn't expect you to speak perfectly. And even people who get 9, they make small mistakes. And people who get 7 or 8, they can make quite a few mistakes, and it is acceptable, all right? If you're constantly thinking about the perfect grammar and vocabulary, it will reduce your fluency and pronunciation. You're going to speak slowly and you're going to look a bit confused, which will dramatically decrease your overall performance. All right? Fluency and pronunciation make up 50% of your marks. So there's no point in trying to use perfect grammar and vocabulary if you're losing half of your mistake in the process. Try to speak as natural as possible, and with a focus on speaking at a natural speed and clear pronunciation, and the grammar and vocabulary will look after itself. All right. These were some of general tips, and I would like you to look at the questions which I sent you in our group and try to practice. When you finish playback, all right, your recorded answer, and focus on these tips. Did you follow them? I hope this video was useful. I will continue to post some extra materials which will help us to perform better in speaking. So see you next time. Goodbye.